Hello friends and welcome to Digimento. So I hope you are all doing well. Today we will continue our discussion on this particular module. So yesterday we were discussing about the types of forest and today we will continue with that. Okay. So yeah. So hello, hi everyone. So if you are watching the video, please do let me know. So hi Pooja, hi Vikrant, hi Senthil. Akshay, hi. Then again, okay. So, yeah. I know you had a very hectic day today. I think you had back-to-back lectures today and another one is scheduled at 8:30. I'm sure you must be very tired, but we will try to wind up by 8:15 or something. So, hi Nandini, hi Atira. So, we'll just begin and then we'll try to wind up by 7:50 and sorry 8:15 so that you will get some 15 minutes break before you start the next lecture, okay? Yeah, so if you have not yet subscribed to our channel, please do subscribe and share this video with your friends. And we are providing the online coaching for GATE, NTA UGC NET and PGT Computer Science. So you can visit our website to know more details, and also you can call to this number for getting more details about the courses that we provide. Now we were discussing about the sources of energy, the renewable and the non-renewable. Okay, so yeah, we were discussing about the forest. Okay, type of forest. We will just quickly go through, even though we have already discussed the slide, we will quickly go through. So we have the evergreen rainforest where the trees, it seems to be evergreen. Why? Because of the high availability of rainfall. So this is seen in places where the annual rainfall is more than 200 centimeters. So the places are Western Ghats and the Northeast, some states of Northeast. Then we have monsoon deciduous forest. This is all depending upon the annual rainfall, okay? We also have drier deciduous tropical savanna. Then there is a dry thorny scrub and we also have deserts. So I think we already discussed about the tropical evergreen rainforest and the deciduous forest. So today we will take up mountain forest or montane forest. Hi Gajalakshmi. So we were just briefing what we learned till yesterday. So this is mountain forest or montane forest. So this type of forest is seen along the slopes of the mountain. So montane forest or mountain forest, this is seen along the slopes of a mountain. So mountain slopes. And on the foothills of the Himalayas until a height of 1500 meters, evergreen trees like sal, teak, bamboo grow. So these are the types of trees or the vegetation seen in the montane forest. So on the foothills of Himalayas until a height of 1500 meters, evergreen trees like the sal, teak, bamboo, etc. are seen. Now on the higher slope, temperate conifer trees like the pine, fir, oak, etc. So above a certain height. Why? Because we know that when with an increase of height, what happens? When we go upwards towards the mountains, what will happen? There is an increase in the pressure. So an increase in the pressure means that there is a drop in the temperature. So an increase in the pressure equal to a drop in the temperature. So what happens when the temperature drops when there is a lesser temperature, trees like it is called as a temperate climate. So trees like conifer trees like pine, yesterday I think we have discussed about it. So pine, fir, oak, etc. are seen. Okay. So yeah, so we are talking about Himalayas. So until 1500 meter height, we will see that there are trees like evergreen trees like the sal, teak, bamboo, etc. Then higher slopes, we will see temperate trees. Okay, at the higher elevation of the Himalayas, rhododendrons and junipers are found. That is even at the higher slopes, like when we move upwards. So we will see such type of temperate forest or temperate vegetation. So this is about the mountain forest or the montane forest. So yeah, now we have the tidal or the mangrove forest. So tidal or the mangrove forest, it grows by the side of the coast and on the edges of the deltas of Kaveri, Krishna, Mahanadi, Godavari and Ganga. So we know that mangrove vegetation or mangrove forest, this is a transition. It is found in the transition zone. Transition zone means transition from terrestrial to aquatic ecosystem. So we find the mangrove forest mostly in the transition zone where the terrestrial and the aquatic ecosystems meet. So in this transition zone we will see the mangrove forest. Okay, so mangrove forest or the tidal forest, it grows by the side of the coast, which means from where the transition happens, or from an aquatic to a terrestrial ecosystem, or the other way. So it is found mainly in the transition zone. So it grows by the side of the coast and on the edges of the deltas of Kaveri, Krishna, Mahanadi, Godavari and Ganga. And Sundari is the most famous mangrove vegetation. So Sundari is the most major tree in this forest. So Sundari tree, this is a mangrove tree. The most important trees of the tidal forest are Hogla, Garan and Pasur. So the most important trees of the tidal forest, that is the mangrove forest. So these are the tree varieties. The most important is Sundari. So apart from Sundari, we also have Hogla, Garan and Pasur. This forest is an important factor in the timber industry as they provide timber and firewood. So it plays a major role in the timber industry as well. Okay. So yeah. Hi Sumati. Hi PNG. Hi Lipika. Hi Puvidi. And Akshay is asking me, please provide some graphics about different types of forest. Okay, I'll try to provide. I'll try to include one video tomorrow regarding different types of forest. Okay, I'll do that. Thank you for suggesting, Akshay. Sundarban, yes, Sundarban. Sundarban, that is how this name, Sundari tree, Sundarban. Okay. Now, semi-deserts. Semi-deserts and desert vegetation. So, desert vegetation means in those places where there is inadequate rainfall or rainfall is less than 50 centimeters. So this is desert vegetation, or we call as semi-desert vegetation. It is found in the parts of Gujarat, Punjab and Rajasthan. So if we look into the physical map of India, we will see that half of the part of Gujarat and Rajasthan, most of the Rajasthan and this Punjab belt. Okay, I'll just show you. So from here, from Gujarat to this Punjab belt. So here we will see that there is an inadequate rainfall. So here we also have the Aravallis so this Aravallis also act as a boundary for the monsoon rainfall. So because of all these factors, and you need not study the details of all these. So here in this area, the rainfall received is very less than 50 centimeter. So parts of Gujarat, Punjab and Rajasthan experience this desert like climate, and therefore they have a desert vegetation. In some parts they have a desert vegetation, especially in Rajasthan. And if you remember, we have discussed about the type of vegetation found in the desert vegetation. So trees or the small shrubs or small plants are found, and especially this cactus and all, those plants or shrubs which have certain features which can withstand this inadequate water availability. So Indian wild date, thorny bushes, acacia, babul, etc. are the vegetation found in this region. We have discussed that in detail. I think we need not discuss it again. And they have long roots and thick flesh and store water in their stem to endure during the drought conditions. So we know that in desert areas the availability of water is very less. So very less water is available in the desert areas. So what happens? These trees or this small vegetation, especially the plants, shrubs, etc., to survive, they have some specific characters like the long roots, thick flesh, and also they have this stomata to store the water in their stem, etc., to withstand the drought-like conditions or the inadequacy of water. Okay. Now, this is another important topic from your syllabus, that is major environmental movements in India. So, we have completed the different types of vegetation. So, today we will take up, now we will take up the major environmental movements in India. So, we just have 2 slides to go, and then the major environmental movements in India will be done, and we will start with the next chapter, the last chapter, okay? And tomorrow we will try to finish the entire unit 9. Now coming to the major environmental movements in India, first one is Bishnoi movement. So Bishnoi movement, it was led by Amrita Devi, in which around 363 people sacrificed their lives for the protection of forests. So these are some of the major environmental movements. So environmental movements and the leaders are important. So the leader of the Bishnoi movement is the Amrita Devi, and this was for the protection of forests. And very important one is Chipko movement. So the Chipko movement, it was a non-violent agitation. You may be knowing what happened. So in the Chipko movement, I'll just brief it to you. So the women, actually this is a very good example of women empowerment or social empowerment of women as well, where the women came in the forefront and they fought for the rights or to protect the forest. So what they did, they embraced or hugged the trees. So when these people came to cut the trees, they embraced the trees, and if the people had to cut the trees, then they had to first cut these women who were embracing the trees. So this is an example of women empowerment, a very good example of an environmental movement in India. So Chipko movement, it was a non-violent agitation by Sundarlal Bahuguna in 1973 that was aimed at the protection and the conservation of trees. So Chipko movement, it was a non-violent agitation, and the leader of the movement is Sundarlal Bahuguna. This is also very important. Sundarlal Bahuguna started in 1973, and this was aimed at the protection and conservation of trees. So protection of trees and the conservation of trees. The name of the movement Chipko, it comes from the word embrace, as the villagers hugged the trees and encircled them to prevent being hacked. So this is what happened during the Chipko movement. Okay. Next we have the Narmada Bachao Andolan. So this was this particular movement was against the Narmada River Valley project, and it was drawn up. This was drawn up on a multiplicity of discourses for protest, like the displacement risk, resettlement provisions, environmental impact, and sustainability issues. So these were the reasons for the protest. One was the displacement. Whenever a developmental activity is taking place on a particular place, the people living then in that place will be replaced. So the first one is the replacement or the displacement of the people, population living in that particular area. So first risk is displacement risk. Second one is resettlement provisions. Third one is environmental impact and sustainability issues. So these were the reasons for Narmada Bachao Andolan. Next one is Apiko movement. So Apiko movement is one of the forest-based environmental movements in India, and this was in Karnataka. So this is about the Apiko movement. So with this we have completed the chapter 6, that is module 6 of the unit 9. Okay, we have just one more module to go, that is the 7th module. Now I want suggestions from you whether to take up the 7th module or you want me to go for previous year questions. Maybe because you had back-to-back classes, I am not sure how you are feeling now, whether you are in a mood to listen to the lectures or you want to solve some previous year paper. So I want opinion from you. So if you want to take or me to take up the new module, we can do that, the 7th one. We have like half an hour more. So if you want, I'll take up the next module, or if you want, we can solve some previous year papers questions. Maybe in this 30 minutes we will solve some 10 to 15 questions. So whichever is comfortable for you, you can just suggest it in the comment section. Now we will do that. Okay. So need to continue with new chapter. Okay, I'll take the majority decision. So yeah. Tell me what do you want me to do. So anything is fine for me. I am prepared with the next chapter, but if you are very tired of the back-to-back classes, okay, so everyone is for continuing the next chapter. So I think we will do that. So this chapter is done. Now this is a very important chapter for you. So yeah, most of you are for the next chapter. So this is a very important module for you, multilateral environmental agreements, acts and policies. So yeah, okay. First one, we will be discussing about the Stockholm Conference. So here in the syllabus, it is particularly mentioned that you have to learn about the UN conferences on environment. So considering the relevance and the importance of this chapter, I have added almost every possible topic which can be asked in your examination from this module, from this chapter. So we will just start with Stockholm Conference, which is the first most important conference under the UN. So UN conferences on environment, the first one is Stockholm. Okay. Yeah. First one, Stockholm Conference, which happened in the year 1972. So Stockholm Conference in 1972. Now, this conference is also called UN Conference on Human Environment. So, United Nations Conference on Human Environment. And in this, the first declaration of international protection of environment happened. And this is the relevance of this conference, that the first declaration of the international protection of environment took place in this conference. And the declaration had 26 principles. And a very important outcome of Stockholm Conference is the establishment of the UNEP. Very, very important. So, UNEP or the United Nations Environmental Program. So, UNEP or the United Nations Environmental Program has been established under the Stockholm Conference of 1972, and this is the most important outcome of the Stockholm Conference, that the UNEP was established. Now we have the Nairobi Summit, which happened after 10 years of the Stockholm Conference. Stockholm Conference in 1972, here this in 1982. Now the Nairobi Summit, the declaration under this summit envisaged the creation of a special commission in order to frame long-term environmental strategies for achieving sustainable developments up to year 2000 and beyond. So this happened in 82. That means 18 years, that is after 18 years, that is targets to be achieved in 2000. That is after 18 years. So this is a long-term strategy. So Nairobi Summit basically focused on achieving the sustainable development goals, or not actually the SDGs. SDGs came very late in 2015, but achieving the sustainable development with regard to environment, and for that long-term strategies had to be developed, and the declaration was endorsed by the UNEP. So we will see that in 1972 the UNEP was established under the aegis of Stockholm Conference, and after that the UNEP, United Nations Environmental Program, has played a major role in the upcoming conferences and the summits. Okay. Next, we have the 1992 Earth Summit. So this you can just remember it like this. 1972 we had the Stockholm Conference, which was the first most important environmental conference. So plus 10 years, that is in 1982. We have the next one, that is the Nairobi Conference. Then we have in 1992 again plus 10. So you can just add on 10. So plus 10 we have the Earth Summit. So Earth Summit, the United Nations Conference on Environment and Development. So this is the name of the Earth Summit. So United Nations Conference on Environment and Development. Now the summit led to the development of, so this is very important, 1992 Earth Summit. This Earth Summit has led to many initiatives. So this led to the development of Rio Declaration on Environment and Development, then Agenda 21, then Forest Principles, Convention on Biological Diversity, UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC. We will discuss each one, don't worry. Then United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification. So Earth Summit, we will see many number of decisions were taken, and also this Earth Summit led to many important agreements or the development of the many important agreements and also decisions. Rio Declaration on Environment and Development, Agenda 21, Forest Principles, CBD, which is the Convention on Biological Diversity, UNFCCC, which is United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, and the United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification. So all these were the outcomes of the Earth Summit or the United Nations Conference on Development and environment. Now we will see each one. Okay, first one is the Rio Declaration. So Rio Declaration, it contained 27 principles, and the purpose was to guide the countries in future of sustainable development. So Rio Declaration, it was related to the sustainable development. Now do not confuse it with the sustainable development goals, because sustainable development goals is not just about environmental protection. It has a wider interpretation. Like we have already discussed about the SDGs. It focuses on education, it focuses on health, it focuses on waste management, it focuses on many aspects, not just on environment. So the Rio Declaration, it had 27 principles, and these principles aimed at sustainable development. Next is Agenda 21. Agenda 21 is an action plan with respect to sustainable development, but it is non-binding. Now, what is the difference between binding and non-binding? If you have any idea, please do mention in the comments. Because these days I'm not asking you any questions, so I am itself feeling like very sorry about it. So if you know what is the difference, please do mention. Then we will continue. I'll just see. No idea. Okay. So non-binding, I'll just tell you. Suppose there is an agreement among different countries, or it can be between institutions or anything. So suppose there is an agreement, and suppose there are 100 signatories to it. So this agreement, or a result of a conference. So a particular decision was taken after a meeting. So 100 countries participated in this meeting and has agreed to this decision. Now, non-binding means that even though the countries does not adhere to this agreement or to the decision taken, they will not be punished. So non-binding means it is the it can be voluntarily decided by the countries whether to adhere to the decisions taken or not. So that is non-binding. So Agenda 21 is non-binding, which means that even though the countries does not adopt to it, then it cannot be forcefully done. So yeah, Pooja has commented that not forceful. Yes, correct. So it is not compulsory or cannot forcefully ask the countries to adopt it. Next is the forest principles. So forest principles, they are formally known as, forest principles formally called non-legally binding authoritative statement of principles for a global consensus on management, conservation and sustainable development of all types of forests. It's a very long name, you know. Non-legally binding, which means again it's not legally binding, authoritative statement of principles. Now, why is this principles adopted? For a global consensus, which means the consensus of countries at the global level of different countries. So consensus of different countries. And for what is this consensus? Management, conservation and sustainable development of all types of forests. So we can simply call it as forest principles. So if you find any difficulty in reading such a long sentence, you can split it and then you will also better get an idea about it. Okay. So if we split it, non-legally binding, this is the first phrase. So non-legally binding means it's not legally binding, cannot be legally enforced. Authoritative statement of principles for a global consensus. Next important phrase is the global consensus, which means consensus among the countries at the global level, not just of one country or two country or not of a region. Now, what is this consensus for? The purpose of this consensus. Next phrase is regarding the purpose. Purpose is management, conservation and sustainable development of all types of forest. And it makes many recommendations for conservation and sustainable development forestry and is non-binding. Okay. So, it gives various recommendations for the conservation and the sustainable development of forestry. And it is non-binding. Next is the CBD, Convention on Biological Diversity. So CBD, or the Convention on Biological Diversity, it is an international legal instrument for the conservation of biological diversity. So this is an international legal instrument. Which means it is legally binding. for conservation of biological diversity. We have already discussed what is biological diversity. That is why I said when we discuss the basic terms in ecology and environment, it will be helpful in the higher levels. So that was the purpose why we learned about the basic terms in the beginning itself, because when we reach the higher levels like this conventions and all, you will face it not difficult to understand, because you now already know what is biological diversity if you have revised. Okay. Now, yeah. It is a legal instrument for the conservation of biological diversity, the sustainable use of its components, and fair and equitable sharing. This is very important. Fair and equitable. Hope you remember what is the difference between equality and equity. We discussed the example of cake, okay, being cut into 4 pieces equally and cut according to the need. So equity, okay. Fair and equitable sharing of the benefits arising out of the utilization of genetic resources. So Convention on Biological Diversity, I'll just explain it to you. Basically, this is a legal instrument, which means it's legally binding, and the purpose is the conservation of biodiversity or biological diversity. Now, why it is important to conserve the biodiversity? Because we have to ensure that it is available for the future generations. That is sustainability, the concept of sustainability. Sustainable use of its components. So here the components, the term components means the components of an ecosystem or biodiversity. Now, fair and equitable sharing of benefits. We know that there are various benefits of biological diversity. So these benefits of biological diversity should be shared in a fair and equitable manner, and sharing of the benefits arising out of the utilization of genetic resources. So it is nothing but Convention on Biological Diversity is a legal document or a legal instrument which is legally binding upon the signatories, that the biological diversity or the biodiversity should be used in a sustainable manner, so that the future generations will also be able to use the or utilize the benefits. And also it requires the fair and equitable sharing of benefits arising out of the utilization of genetic resources. Next one is the Aichi targets. So Aichi targets, there are basically 20 Aichi targets. The Aichi targets also were adopted by the Convention on Biological Diversity at the Nagoya Conference. So the Aichi targets, they were adopted by the Convention on Biological Diversity at the Nagoya Conference. 20 Aichi targets, and India made 12 national biodiversity targets. Next is UNFCCC, which is the United Nations. So UNFCCC United Nations Framework for Climate Change, okay, combating climate change. So UNFCCC, it is to achieve stabilization of greenhouse gas concentrations. Now here we will see that UNFCCC, it is a United Nations Framework for combating climate change. Now we have to recollect what is climate change. Now climate change, how does it happen? Variations in the climatic patterns. Now this is called climate change, variations in the climatic patterns. How does this happen? A main factor is the global warming. Now global warming, how does it happen? Because of increase in the temperature. So increase in the greenhouse gases emitted, it results into global warming. Global warming finally results into climate change. So to achieve stabilization of greenhouse gas concentrations in the atmosphere at a level that would prevent dangerous anthropogenic interference with the climate system. So basically the UNFCCC, FCC or the FCCC, the aim is to stabilize the greenhouse gas concentrations. Why? Because if the greenhouse gas concentrations are stabilized, then the global warming can be prevented to a certain extent, which will have a positive impact on the climate change. Otherwise, what happens? The greenhouse gas concentrations increases, which leads to global warming at higher rates, which will lead to changes, climatic changes or climate change. The COP or the Conference of Parties is the supreme body of this convention. So the supreme body is the COP, Conference of Parties, where the member countries, they participate and take joint decisions based on consensus. Now here also important is that UNFCCC, it's not legally binding. It's not legally binding. Okay. Yes, I have like same issue, climate change. Akshay is asking me whether I have cold. Yes, actually, what happened is like till last week we had heavy rains in Kerala. From morning till not till evening. Actually, continuously there was rainfall, non-stop rainfall even at the night. But now it's like the temperature is maybe like 35 degree or 32 degree like that. So it's very hot. It's horrible outside. So this immediate shift in the climatic pattern, even we all are sick at home. Like we have this cough and cold and cannot even go to a hospital because of corona issues. Okay, thank you so much for asking, Akshay. Now we have United Nations CCD, which is the not Cafe Coffee Day, which is the Convention to Combat Desertification. United Nations CCD, you can remember it that way, CCD, UNCCD. Thank you, Akshay. Thank you so much. He just commented that get well soon. Thank you so much. So, United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification. Now, before we discuss about UNCCD, I want you to recollect about desertification. Can someone comment what is desertification? We have already discussed about desertification. Desertification means creating desert-like conditions. Can someone explain in the comment box? What did we learn about desertification? And what are the reasons for desertification? Both we have discussed. If you remember, please do comment. And the saddest part is that once we get adjusted to one climate, then immediately it changes. That is the biggest problem. Tira has commented destruction of the biological potential of the land. Yes, correct. Yes, Lipika, destruction of the biological potential. Now, how does this happen? Because of human interference. So, UNCCD, the United Nations Conference to Combat Desertification, it is a conference adopted in order to reduce the rate of desertification or combating the desertification. Yes, as Lipika has commented, rate of vegetation drops. Loss and contributes to global climate change through loss of carbon. Okay. So, it is a sole legally binding international agreement. Now, here it is legally binding, which means every country which is a signatory to this conference or the convention has to adhere to all the rules and regulations under this convention. Okay. Now, sole legally binding international agreement linking the environment and development to sustainable land management. Sustainable land management means sustainable use of land so that we will be able to combat desertification. It addresses specifically the arid, semi-arid and dry subhumid areas. The problems in the arid areas, semi-arid and the dry subhumid areas. Pooja has commented, destroy the forest to make desert-like situation. Yes, the loss of vegetation or deforestation finally resulting into desert-like conditions. This is called desertification. And I hope you also remember we discussed about the difference between deforestation and desertification. Not always deforestation can lead to desertification. Okay, but desertification definitely includes deforestation. Next, we will discuss about the Johannesburg Summit, which was held in 2002. And I already told you how you can remember everything from 1972. Plus 10, plus 10, plus 10. 1972, we had the first one. Okay. Then we had 1982, we had the second one, Nairobi. 1992, we had the Earth Summit. Then in 2002, we had the Johannesburg Summit. Okay, plus 10, plus 10. Now, Johannesburg Summit is called the World Summit on Sustainable Development, and this is called Rio plus 10 or the Earth Summit 2. Why? Because the Earth Summit was held in 1992. Okay, 1992 Earth Summit. Now, after 10 years, this has happened. That's why Rio plus 10 or the Earth Summit. Now, when we discuss about the Earth Summit, we said that this was the conference which was held on environment and development, and the Earth Summit was held in a place called Rio de Janeiro. So that is why it is also called Rio Summit. Okay, Earth Summit is also called Rio Summit, 1992 Earth Summit. So after 1992, in 2002 we had the Johannesburg Summit. That's why it is called Rio plus 10. So Rio Summit is the Earth Summit itself. Okay, 1992 Earth Summit is also known as Rio Summit because it was held in Rio de Janeiro. Okay, Janeiro, not Janeiro, Janeiro. Okay, that's why it is also called Rio plus 10. So this was held to discuss about the sustainable development, and it laid out Johannesburg plan of implementation as the action plan. So an action plan to achieve the sustainable development was adopted. So this plan was called the Johannesburg plan. Now most of these names come as a result of where does the conference actually take place. So Rio Summit or the Earth Summit, why it is called Rio Summit? Because it was held in Rio de Janeiro. Now Johannesburg plan because it was held in Johannesburg. Now we have the Rio plus 20. So basically these two conferences, these three conferences we discussed together. Rio Summit, or which is also called the Earth Summit. Then we have Rio plus 10 or the Johannesburg Summit. Then we have the Rio plus 20. Okay, Rio plus 20. So obviously plus 10 years, that is in 2012. So it was called the United Nations Conference on Sustainable Development. The objectives were poverty reduction, clean energy, then sustainable development, that is economic development, social development and environmental protection. I hope you remember when we discussed about sustainable development, we said that three factors have to come together. So one is growth, second one is development, third one is sustainability. Now you also may be remembering we discussed this in very detail. So growth means it is an economic parameter. Now development means it is a social parameter. Whereas sustainability means it is an ecological or environmental parameter. So if all these come together, we call it as sustainable development. So that is why here it is mentioned sustainable development. Three factors are there: economic development, social development and environmental protection. So if these three comes together, only then we can call it as a sustainable development. So basically these three conferences, Rio plus 10 and Rio plus 20, these three are the conferences which were held for attaining the goals of sustainable development. So these are the important UN conferences, okay, from your examination perspective. So we will just brief it. First one is the Stockholm conference. So from there you can add 10, 10, 10, 10. You can add like that. Stockholm 1972. Then Nairobi 1982. Earth Summit 1992. Then under the Earth Summit we have the Convention on Biological Diversity. The Rio Declaration was there. Agenda 21. Forest Principles. UNFCCC. UNCCD. Etc. Okay, under the Earth Summit 1992. So plus 10 you will get. Earth Summit is also called Rio Summit because it was held in Rio de Janeiro. Then plus 10 we will get Rio plus 10 or Johannesburg Summit, which was held in 2002. It is called the World Summit on Sustainable Development. Third we have the Rio plus 20, which was held after 10 years from Johannesburg Summit or 20 years from the Earth Summit, which was held in 2012. So these are the important UN conferences that you have to study for your examination. Okay, so tomorrow we will take up multilateral environmental agreements. Okay, multilateral, under that sites we will see Appendix 1, 2, 3, Vienna Convention, Montreal Protocol, Basel Convention, Rotterdam Convention, Cartagena Protocol, Stockholm Convention. Stockholm Convention, this is a different one. Okay, so other one was Stockholm Conference. This is Stockholm Convention. Nagoya Protocol, Minamata, Ramsar Conservation, Montreux Record, Wildlife Protection Act. So these biosphere reserves we will see. MAB. So it's a little lengthy actually. Okay, so I hope we will finish by tomorrow, if not by day after tomorrow. Tomorrow classes will be at 7:30. Okay, so tomorrow we will have the classes at 7:30. Okay, so tomorrow we will take up the multilateral environmental agreements. We will try to finish, but if not, day after tomorrow we will finish this chapter. With that we will complete unit 9. So all these are exclusively mentioned in your syllabus, so we cannot skip any of them, and very important also, so we cannot skip them. Okay, so if you have any doubts, you can ask me now, or you can just go through the notes, and tomorrow if we will just start with clearing the doubts, because these are all the portions which is very important for your examination. So if at all you have any doubts, you can just revise it today and you can ask me tomorrow also. Okay, so just one more month, not even a month left for your exams. Do well, really work hard, and as I already told you, set a target for yourself, everyday target or weekly targets, timetable. So be focused on your studies, and I wish you all the very best. So we will try our best. From my side also, I'll try my best. Whatever I can do for you, I'll definitely do that for you. It is always my pleasure to do whatever is possible from my side. So let's keep supporting each other, and I hope you all will come in flying colors. So I wish you all the best. I think you have the next lecture scheduled at 8:30. So I'll wind up now. You can take a 15 minutes break or something. You can have your food or you can take a break. Okay. So yeah, I'll see you again tomorrow. But remember, tomorrow onwards we'll meet at 7:30. Okay. So tomorrow onwards the timing will be 7:30, and I'll see you. Okay. Bye. Good night. Hello friends, and welcome to Digimento. So let's begin. We were discussing about multilateral environmental agreements, acts and policies. So last day we were discussing about some of the agreements under the UN initiative, United Nations. So today we will be taking up some other multilateral environmental agreements, acts and policies. So welcome everyone. Hi Divya. Please let me know if you are watching this video so that we can kickstart the session. So let me know if you are watching it. And if you have not yet subscribed to our channel, please do subscribe to our channel. And also press the bell icon for receiving the notifications. And if you are preparing for GATE, NTA, UGC NET or PGT Computer Science, we are providing online courses for the same. You can avail them, and you can get the details of the same from our website www.digimentor.com or from this number. So hi Gajalakshmi, hi Atira, hi Ramesh. So any others, if you are watching the video, please do let me know. Please do drop a comment in the comment box. Hi Namrata. So yeah, so I think we will start. We were discussing about the UN conferences on environment. Please try to recollect them. We will have a very quick revision for like 1 minute or 2 minutes, so that the others will be joining the class by then. Hi Rani, hello. So we started with the Stockholm conference, which started in 1972, which is the first conference of that kind regarding the environment, UN conference on environment. And here the most important outcome was the establishment of UNEP, United Nations Environment Program. Then after 10 years, if you remember, we discussed that after every 10 years there was another conference happening. So after the Stockholm conference in 1972, after 10 years, we had the Nairobi summit, which was in 1982, after 10 years. Now, this declaration was for the creation of a special commission for the to frame the long-term environmental strategies. Then we had the Earth Summit, which is the most important one. In 1992, we had the Earth Summit. So, United Nations Conference on Environment and Development, UNCED. This was the name of the summit. And then in the Earth Summit, we know that the most important decisions were taken. The most important declarations were made. So first one is Rio Declaration on Environment and Development. Earth Summit is also called the Rio Summit because it was held in Rio de Janeiro. Then the Agenda 21, the Forest Principles, Convention on Biological Diversity, the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification. So these are the important developments or the outcomes of the Earth Summit 1992. Then Rio Declaration contained 27 principles to guide the countries in future sustainable development. Agenda 21, we have discussed about all this. I don't think we need to go into details. In the last lecture, we have discussed about all that. The Convention on Biological Diversity, the CBD, HE targets, UNFCCC, UNCCD, then Johannesburg Summit. After that, after 1992 Earth Summit, next one was the Johannesburg Summit of 2002. It was also called as the Earth Summit 2 or the Rio Plus 10 because the Earth Summit was held in Rio de Janeiro and then after 10 years. So that's why it's also called Rio Plus 10. Then this was met to discuss about the sustainable development. Then it also laid out Johannesburg Plan of Implementation as an action plan. Then we have the Rio Plus 20. So this was aimed at poverty reduction, clean energy, sustainable development, etc. So today we will be taking up multilateral environmental agreements. So this is not UN agreements or under the UN leadership. So whatever has come under the UN leadership, we have already discussed about it. Now we will be taking up the multilateral. So multilateral means governments of more than one country. That is multilateral. So we will be taking up this today. Now, hi Das, hi JD, hi Namrita, Electronic Science. Okay, Veena Devi, hi Pooja, hi Sumati, hello. So some regular students are missing. I think they will join soon. Now before we move on to this one, I just want to know whether you have any doubts from the previous session. So we will take up the doubts and then we will move ahead. I think I told you last day that if you have any doubts you can ask me. Yesterday unfortunately I could not take class. I was feeling very sick by the evening. I was not at all well, so I was not able to take the classes yesterday. I'm really sorry. I know it was a great injustice to you at this time of exam. I'm really sorry for that. So yeah, so tell me if you have any doubts, or otherwise we'll continue. If it's clear until what we have discussed till last class, if it's clear for you, let me know. We will continue. Otherwise let me know if you have any doubts. Any doubts? I hope no. So we will continue. So first one we will discuss is CITES or the CITES. The full form is CITES. Full form is Conference on International or Convention on International Trade on Endangered Species. So the Convention of International Trade in Endangered Species. So this is an international agreement between the governments. That is why it is called a multilateral environmental agreement. So multilateral means that more than one government, that is the head of the government of more than one country. Okay, Atira, Sumati and Pooja has commented that it's clear. Thank you so much. So we will continue. So this is an international agreement between the governments. So intergovernmental international agreement. We can say that it is an intergovernmental international agreement. Okay, and this is also the only treaty to ensure that international trade in plants and animals is regulated. So, CITES, it is administered through the UNEP, United Nations Environment Program. So, these are the important things. Now, the objective of CITES or the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species. The objective of CITES is to oversee or to regulate the international trade of endangered species. Okay. Now, this is the only treaty to ensure that international trade in plants and animals is regulated, and it is administered through the UNEP, United Nations Environment Program. If you remember, the UNEP, it was initiated as a result of the Stockholm Conference. Okay, Stockholm Conference. Next one, inside the sites itself, inside the sites, we have 3 appendices. So first one, it includes species which are threatened with extinction and provides the greatest level of protection, including the restrictions on commercial trade. So classification under the sites. The first one is the appendix 1, in which the species which are threatened with extinction, that is, if there is a chance of extinction for the species, and it also provides the greatest level of protection, which includes the restrictions on commercial trade. Next is appendix 2. Appendix 2 includes species that, although currently not threatened with extinction, may become so without trade controls. So in appendix 2, those species are included for which, even though now there is no threat of extinction, there is a chance that if the trade of these species are not controlled, then this will get extincted. Then third one is appendix 3, which includes the species of which a range country has asked other parties to help in controlling international trade. Which means, for example, if there is a threat of the species in a particular country, suppose in India. Now, India is asking the other governments to control or to restrict the trade of this particular species. So, these are the 3 categories. I'll just explain all of them together. So first one, that is appendix 1. This includes those species which gets the highest level of protection. So here highest level of protection means that those species which are threatened with extinction, and these species are getting the highest level of protection. Okay. Second one, those species which does not have a threat of extinction, but there is a chance that these species can get extincted in the future very soon. So these species are included in the appendix 2, and for these species there will be trade controls. Now next category is appendix 3. It includes the species for which a range country has asked other parties to help in controlling the international trade. Next one is Vienna Convention of 1985. So Vienna Convention is basically to protect the ozone layer. If you remember, if you can recollect, we discussed about the ozone layer. The purpose of the ozone layer is to protect the earth. So protection of earth from the ultraviolet radiations. So ozone layer acts as a blanket which ensures the protection of the earth from the ultraviolet radiations. So Vienna Convention, it entered into force in 1988, and the purpose is to protect the ozone layer. So ozone layer protection. And it does not include legally binding reduction goals for the use of CFCs. CFCs is chlorofluorocarbons. So Vienna Convention does not have legally binding goals. So these goals set up under the Vienna Convention is not legally binding. We have already discussed what is meant by legally binding, which means by force or by law, this can be forcefully this can be adopted by countries, but this is not possible because this is not legally binding. So it does not include legally binding reduction goals for the use of CFCs. Next one is Montreal Protocol. Again, the Montreal Protocol, again it's related to the protection of ozone layer. So Montreal Protocol, it aims to reduce the production and consumption of ozone depleting substances and to protect the earth ozone layer. So this is again targeted at protecting the ozone layer of the earth. This is the only UN treaty ever that has been ratified by every country. So this is the relevance and the importance of the Montreal Protocol. So this is the only UN treaty which has been ratified by every country on the earth. So every country has ratified this treaty, and this is the only treaty to be so. The Multilateral Fund for the implementation of the Montreal Protocol was established in 1991. So the Montreal Protocol was adopted in 1987, and after 4 years, that is in 1991, that is after 4 years, a fund was established, that is multilateral fund. Okay, a multilateral fund for the implementation of this protocol was established in 1991. Again, multilateral fund means there will be contribution from all the governments. Next is Basel Convention 1989. I am not discussing everything about it because from your examination perspective, whatever is important we will be discussing. Okay, next is Basel Convention of 1989. So Basel Convention, it is related to the control of transboundary movement of hazardous waste and their disposal. So Basel Convention, transboundary, that means the movement of hazardous waste from one country to other. Transboundary movement of hazardous waste and their disposal. This is what the Basel Convention is concerned about. And this convention was adopted to protect the human health and environment against the adverse effects of hazardous waste. So Basel Convention, this was adopted to protect the Das is asking me Montreal is first, then Vienna. I think Vienna was the first one. I'll just clarify that. Okay. I think Vienna was first. I'll just clarify it by the end of this lecture. Okay. So Basel Convention, it aims to control the transboundary movement of hazardous waste and the disposal of this waste. So aim is to protect the human health and the environment against the adverse impact of the hazardous waste. And these are the types of waste which is regulated under the Basel Convention. So biomedical waste, healthcare waste, used oil, used lead acid batteries, persistent organic pollutant waste, polychlorinated biphenyls, then chemical waste. So these are the various categories of waste which are included under the Basel Convention. Okay. So the hazardous waste, these are the types of hazardous waste that are included in this convention. Next is Rotterdam Convention. This was adopted in 1998, but it came into force in 2004. Okay. So adopted in 1998 and came into force in 2004. So it covers the pesticides and industrial chemicals that have been banned or severely restricted for health and environmental reasons. So the Rotterdam Convention, it covers the pesticides and the industrial waste. So those pesticides and other industrial chemicals that are banned or they are severely restricted because of the human concern or health related concerns and environmental reasons. These are covered under the Rotterdam Convention. So those pesticides and the industrial chemicals which are banned or either severely restricted, these are covered under the Rotterdam Convention. And Rotterdam Convention creates legally binding obligations for the implementation of prior informed consent procedure. Now, the Rotterdam Convention has certain legally binding obligations. So, legally binding obligations for the implementation of the prior informed consent procedure. So what is meant by prior informed consent? Prior informed consent means that a person, suppose for example, a very good example is recently, I think it was a few years or few months back, a group of people were arrested for human trafficking. Okay, so a group of people were arrested and these people, this gang, they said that they were arrested and it was found out that certain group of 20 to 30 female, so 20 to 30 female between the age group of some 30 to 40 years or even lesser than that. So these females were sent to some Middle East countries, especially the Arab countries, and these women who were sent to these Arab countries, they were informed that they will be getting some job there as homemade or as the domestic help in this Arab countries, and they will be offered, they were offered a lump sum amount as salary. So these poor people, what these ladies did was, they somehow found some money and all from somewhere. They bought some money and all from somewhere, and gave it to these people who were acting as the agents. And it was found out after the investigation that this was a clear-cut example of trafficking, human trafficking. So these ladies will be sent to some countries, but not for domestic help, but they will be trafficked, for they will be used for some immoral activities. Okay. So these agents were arrested. So what happened here is, these ladies, it was not a forced trafficking, or this was not a kind of, the ladies were not forced to go to the Middle East. It was with the consent. The ladies were agreeing to go abroad, but what was the problem here? There was an issue of prior informed consent. These ladies were not really informed about for what purpose they will be used for, or what is the purpose why they are taken to this Middle East countries. So here there is a problem of informed consent. Okay, so that is a problem here. So the problem of informed consent. So this protocol, or the Rotterdam Convention, it provides certain legally binding obligations for the implementation of the prior informed consent procedure. And there are a total of 43 chemicals which are listed in Annex 3, and also so these are pesticides and 11 industrial chemicals. Okay, so prior informed consent is mandatory here. Next one is Cartagena Protocol. So Cartagena Protocol was in the year 2000. So this is a protocol on biosafety. Now you must have heard about biosafety in many cases recently. So Cartagena Protocol is related to biosafety, and it is also a part of the Convention on Biological Diversity. So two aspects of the modern biotechnology is covered under the Cartagena Protocol. The first one is access and transfer of technologies. So first one is access to and transfer of technologies. Okay, access to technologies and the transfer of technologies. Second one is appropriate procedures to enhance the safety of biotechnology technologies. So first one is regarding access and transfer of technologies. So first one is related to accessibility. Second one is related to safety. Now, can you give me any example from the recent current affairs relating to Cartagena Protocol, or relating to the aspects covered in Cartagena Protocol? So we will discuss further. If you come across any examples, please do put it in the comment section. So this protocol establishes the procedures relating to the import and the export of LMOs. LMOs is living modified organisms from one country to another. So protocol establishes procedures for regulating the import and the export of LMOs, living modified organisms, from one country to another. Okay. Now, the protocol also requires parties to ensure the LMOs is living modified organisms, being shipped from one country to another are handled, packed and transported in a safe manner. So, this is relating to the LMOs, or the living modified organisms. Now, the shipments regarding the safety protocol. The shipments which carries the LMOs, the living modified organisms, are to be accompanied by documentation that clearly identifies the LMOs, specifies the requirement for safe handling, storage, transportation and use, and provides contact details for further information. Now, advanced informed agreement or advanced informed agreement, which is relating to the prior informed consent. A country intending to export an LMO for international release into the environment must notify in writing the party of import before the first proposed export that takes place. So, this is regarding the need for prior informed consent. Now, I'll give you some examples of LMOs. A very recent one like the BT brinjal and all these things. So, these are some of the examples of LMOs. Okay. living modified, for which there is some issues going on, some problems are going on, or some cases are going on. Next one is Stockholm Convention, Stockholm Convention of 2001. So this is a convention on POP. You can make your own codes to remember all these things, because then it becomes more easy for you. So this is a convention on persistent organic pollutants, or the POPs. So you have to make something to remember, because everything, so many conventions and what it is related to, sometimes it may become very difficult for you to remember. So what you can do is you can just make your codes or your own things to remember all of these. Okay, so Stockholm Convention is a convention on persistent organic pollutants. So POPs, or the persistent organic pollutants, they are organic chemical substances that remain intact exceptionally long period, accumulate in the fatty tissue of living organisms including humans, and are found at higher concentrations at higher levels in the food chain, and are toxic to both humans and wildlife. Now that is why I said, when we discuss about the basic concepts of ecology and environment, I told you basics are very important. If you don't understand that, further it will be very difficult. Now, do you remember about biomagnification, which we discussed? So biomagnification, the concept of biomagnification. So here we discussed that what happens in a food chain. So I hope you remember what is a food chain. So in a food chain, from the producer to the first trophic level, that is a primary consumer, to the secondary consumer, then to the tertiary consumer, and then finally it moves on. So what happens in biomagnification? Suppose the producer, which is a green plant, if the green plant has consumed some pollutants, some organic pollutants, suppose some examples can be pesticides, insecticides, fertilizers, some pollutants, then what happens? The consumers which consume this pollutants from the plants, this gets accumulated in the consumers. Then further it is being consumed by the second level, third level, etc. So what happens is biomagnification, which means the pollutant level of pollutants from one trophic level to the next trophic level increases. So basically this is what is discussed here. Persistent organic pollutants, these are chemical substances sorry. So persistent organic pollutants are certain chemical substances which remain in the food chain for a long period of time, which means from one trophic level to the next trophic level it moves on. So these are organic chemical substances that remain for long period and accumulate in the fatty tissue of the living organisms, including the human beings, because even human beings are a consumer, category of consumers, and these are found at higher concentrations at higher levels in the food chain, and also these are toxic, that is poisonous to the human beings as well as to the wildlife. So the conference which discusses about dealing with the persistent organic pollutants is the Stockholm Convention. So it talks about how the persistent organic pollutants should be dealt with. Das has commented, frog eats chemical, then snake eat it. Yes, that is a very good example. So this is how the food chain, how over the next trophic level, how it is being carried out. These chemicals are being carried out. Yesterday also I was not well, but I somehow want to finish your syllabus before the class, before the exams. So yeah, next is Nagoya Protocol. I'm really sorry. Okay, so Nagoya Protocol, this is a protocol on access to genetic resources and fair and equitable sharing of benefits arising out of their utilization. So Nagoya Protocol, how I remembered about Nagoya Protocol is access, benefit, sharing, ABS. This is how I remembered. Okay. So Pooja commented, take warm water. Thank you, Pooja. Thank you so much. I'll do that. Yeah. So Nagoya Protocol. So it is a protocol on, first one, you can remember it as ABS. So first A stands for access. So access to genetic resources. Now second one is B. B is for benefit. So benefit sharing. So fair and equitable sharing. If I hope you remember what is the difference between equity and equality. All these all these basic concepts we have already discussed many times in the previous classes, so I am not going into all of them. So you can remember it as ABS. So A for access to genetic resources, B for fair and equitable sharing of the benefits arising from the utilization of the genetic resources. So you can make your own code. What I made was ABS. So ABS is access, benefit, sharing. So access to genetic resources and sharing of the benefits arising out of the use of genetic resources. Now here the Nagoya Protocol, this is a supplementary agreement to the CBD. CBD is Convention on Biological Diversity. Now what are the obligations? Obligations are access obligations regarding the access to genetic resources. Next one is benefit sharing obligations and the compliance obligations. So these are the three obligations under the Nagoya Protocol. JD, yes, with ginger. Actually, yes, my mother always makes this water, warm water with dried ginger. So it is really helpful for me. I'll do that. And yeah, Rajaram has also commented, take care. Thank you so much. Das, equity for development. Okay, concept of equity and equality we have discussed earlier also. But for those who doesn't know about it, I'll just explain it one more time. So, okay, suppose you have a cake. So this is a cake and there are 4 members in your family. Okay, out of these 4 members, mother, father, then a 1-year-old child, and there is a grandfather who's like 70 plus, who is also a diabetic patient. Okay, equality means you are dividing the cake into 4 equal parts and dividing it among all these 4 members of the family. Now equity means the father and the mother is getting a larger share, the 1-year-old child and the 70-year-old grandfather is getting a lesser share. Why? Because the 1 year can eat only little. 70-year-old grandfather also can only eat little because of his diabetic history. So father and mother who are middle-aged, healthy, young people, they can have more. So difference is that in case of equity, we are dividing the resources based on the need. And in equality, we do not take care of the need concerns or the need factor, but rather what we do, it is simply divided into equal portions. So what is more desirable is equity, not equality. I hope now you understood. Okay. Yes, Das, you are correct. Equity is needed for development. So we need equity for development. Next we have the Minamata Convention. Now, how I remember about the Minamata Convention is M and M. So, it is a convention on mercury regarding the harmful side effects of mercury. So, Minamata Convention was in 2013 and this is a convention on mercury. Now, it's a global treaty to protect human health and the environment from the anthropogenic emissions and releases of mercury and mercury compounds. So, this is basically a conference or a global treaty which is concerned about protecting the human beings, human health and the environment from anthropogenic activities or anthropogenic emissions of releasing mercury and mercury compounds. It controls the transboundary movement of mercury but does not include natural emissions of mercury. So this is regarding the control of transboundary movement. There is natural sources from which mercury is emitted, but Minamata Convention does not take into account these natural sources, but rather it takes into anthropogenic sources. So whatever anthropogenic factors are responsible for that emission of mercury, it takes into account of that. Next is Ramsar Convention on Wetlands. Very, very important. Okay. Ramsar Convention on Wetlands. This was adopted in 1971 and it came into force in 1975. Okay. It is an intergovernmental treaty that provides framework for national conservation and wise use of wetlands and their resources. So basically Ramsar Convention on the Wetlands, this is an international intergovernmental treaty. That is a treaty or an agreement between the governments of different countries. Intergovernmental treaty, the framework for national action and international cooperation. So action at the national level, which means a country level actions has to be taken. At the same time, what is required is international cooperation. So cooperation at the international level for the conservation and the wise use of wetlands and their resources. And February 2nd is the World Wetlands Day. This is also important for your exams. So World observed on 2nd of February. Next we have the Montrex record. So Montrex record, it's a register of wetland sites. So Montrex record is a register of wetland sites on the list of wetlands of international importance. Now what is important? So Montrex record, this is a record which is related to the wetlands, but what kind of wetlands are being reported here? First one, those wetlands which are of international importance but where there are changes in ecological character have occurred in the past or now occurring, or in the future there is a chance of occurring. So Montrex record is nothing but it gives us a register of wetlands which are of international importance. So wetlands of international importance, but the condition is that those wetlands for which an alteration or a change in the ecological character has occurred, or it is occurring or likely to occur because of changes in the technology or pollution, human interference, etc. So it simply means that Montrex record, it's a record of the wetlands of international importance for which there is a threat. Either it can be in the past or it's there now, or there can be a future possible threat. Okay. So such wetlands and the list of such wetlands are given in the Montrex record. Currently there are two wetlands of India which are in Montrex record, which is Keoladeo National Park, which is in Rajasthan, and Loktak Lake in Manipur. So these are the two. So these names are very important. So Keoladeo National Park in Rajasthan, and also Keoladeo National Park is important for another reason, that is large number of migratory birds, especially migratory birds, visit this national park. For that reason also it's important. So Keoladeo National Park and Loktak Lake. So these are the two wetlands from India which are included in the Montrex record. So it means that these two wetlands are undergoing certain ecological changes, characters are changing ecologically. So today we will stop here. So these are the important multilateral agreements. Now tomorrow we will take up important legislations, that is Wildlife Protection Act and biosphere reserves. What are biosphere reserves? Then we will discuss about the MAB, that is the Man and Biosphere Program of UNESCO. Then another very important legislation is the Environmental Protection Act of 1986. Then Biological Diversity Act of 2002. National Action Plan on Climate Change.